So I want to talk about potatoes and personal growth. Carl Rogers, who is the father of person-centered counselling, which is the type of counselling that I'm training in, talks about something called the self-actualizing tendency, which is his belief that all humans at their core want to develop and want to grow in some way. And if we from the outside can see they're self-sabotaging, they're not really being congruent, they're not developing in a way that makes sense to us, it's because we're not seeing their internal or external environment fully, and that we can always, if we give them the time and if we give them empathy and lack of judgment and space, we can help them explore their motivations, their feelings, and help them align that growth in a way that fully aligns with themselves. He uses a potato analogy for this. He talks about how growing up, he grew up on a farm, his family would store potatoes in their basement during winter, because you store potatoes in a cold, dark space to keep them, keep them edible for longer. And he talked about, even though the only light in the basement was this tiny window right at the top, potatoes would send out sprouts towards this window like they wanted to grow. And so the quote is, "The sprouts were, in their bizarre, futile growth, a sort of desperate expression of the directional tendency I have been describing. They would never become plants, never mature, never fulfill their full potential. But under the most adverse circumstances they were striving to become. Life would not give up, even if it could not flourish." And this is kind of how he talks about growth, how humans generally are trying to grow, they're trying to develop in some way. It's because, so one of the reasons Rogers believes that people struggle is because they're working towards a value system that isn't actually their own. It's ones that have been placed upon them. They're people pleasing, they're trying to keep themselves safe, they're repeating patterns that they've done before or seen before. And if you can sit down with someone and give them empathy and congruence and unconditional positive regard, they might feel safe enough to try and start to break open and explore what they're working towards, and if that's actually their values and their conditions of worth, or is it from parents, caregivers, teachers, whatever. And that gives them the space to figure these things out and then maybe make changes to their, at least internal environment, if not also their external environment, so they can then grow in a way that is more aligned with themselves and looks and feels more like growth to themselves. I talk about this more in my newsletter. There is a link in my bio, but I just love this idea that we are all potatoes, just desperately throwing out shoots, or plants putting down roots, and we just need to, we need to look inside ourselves and make sure that our internal environment is one that we can grow with it in alignment with, and then we can make changes that we need to in order to make that growth even stronger and even better. We are all potatoes.